All right, section 1. We're going to go ahead and start from the top. This is example 1.1. What we need to do is identify the standard 12-bar blues chord changes. It says on the bottom example, so I've given you a popular example, or at least one you'd be familiar with. So temperature, tongue blocking, study number 2. John would not be familiar with this because this is one of our study songs at bluesharmonica.com. So this represents our standard 12-bar blues. It does say long changes next to that, basically meaning that we stay on the 1 chord for 4 bars. That is generally assumed, opposed to the quick change, which will go into example 1.2. Would you generally say that that's the case?
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Yeah, so it's assumed unless otherwise stated, and otherwise stated commonly will be the quick change. But before we jump into that, what I want to do is just do a representation of our root notes for our chord changes. So for example, when we play a 1 chord, you can play 2 draw, which is your root note. Now, you've been through 5 study songs so far at bluesharmonica.com, not study songs, excuse me, 5 music theory lessons so far. So this should be, very easy stuff for you at this point. But let's go ahead and do it just to be clear. C harmonica, 2nd position, key of G. That means we work on the G major scale. John, can you just play a G major scale for us? Let's play that same scale, just single notes with us. 2 draw is your root note for the 1 chord. Actually, why don't you just play the G for us, just by itself, without the chord. 2 draw, G. Then we'll play 3 draw, whole step bend, 2nd note. So that would be the 2nd note of the scale, right? 3 draw, 3rd note of the scale. 4 blow, 4th note of the scale. 4 draw, 5th note of the scale. 5 blow, 6th note of the scale. And then because of 2nd position, we have a flat 5 here, so we need to move down an octave to a 2 draw half step bend. So the major 7th F sharp, 2 draw half step bend. Yeah, which leads to the root note G. Let's do that together.
The leading tone.
The leading tone, yes, exactly. So let's play that scale one more time slowly together. Good. Now, those are also the root notes for our given chords. So our 1 chord root note being G. Yeah, here we go, chords. Our 2 chord, again, would be the 3 draw whole step bend. And our 3 chord, again, 3 draw. Our 4 blows a root note for the 4 chord. 4 draw, root note for the 5 chord. 5 blow, root note for the 6 chord. Back to our 2 draw half step bend for our 7 chord. And back home to our 1 chord. Now, John Garcia, as a guitarist, he was walking up and playing a chord scale. But he can voice those chords in many different ways, right?
Yeah.
So let's play that G chord again, maybe staying towards the lower end of the neck. 2 draw, G chord.
Okay. Like I do a low, really low like that.
And then an A chord. And then a B chord. Continue on, C chord. Yeah, and then a D chord. E chord.
I could do it. I could even stick right there and go lower, right?
Yeah, nice. And then an F sharp. And then back home to G. Yeah.
Yeah, they can be voiced a lot of different ways. There's, as you know, there's so many inversions of the chord.
Yeah, and that's part of what we're talking about here is we don't necessarily have to walk up the chord scale, but John, as a guitarist, has the ability to voice so many different ways, inversions and colorations, adding 6th and 9ths and things like that. When we talk about chords, we're just talking about the basic triad with commonly the flat 7th on top. A lot of these times we're seeing the 7ths on there. But one of the things to be aware of as we go through these, that even if a chord chart exists with basic triads, that it's up to the other musicians to which way they want to present those chords. If it says 1 chord, it could be a 1, it could be a 1/6, a 1/7, it could be a 1/9, which includes the flat 7th or
13th.
Yeah, so why don't you talk about that just for a moment?
I'll play a chord. This is a G9. It's a Stormy Monday chord. Or actually, a lot of people refer to that as the T-Bone Walker chord. But the way that's voiced, you actually have the 3rd of the chord on the bottom. The flat 7th is next, then the 9th, and then the 5th. So, and as you notice, there's no root. It's a non-root chord, so some chords can be voiced in a whole bunch of different ways. Instead of having the notes, the root, third, fifth, then the seventh, and then say the ninth, they're not necessarily in that order. That's what makes it kind of cool, because you can come up with all these different kinds of voicings of these chords. Like I could play the same chord, like there it is there. There I have the seventh on the bottom, then the third, then the fifth, and then the ninth on top, which is totally different than having the fifth on top, see? And that's actually where it really gets kind of fun when it comes to chords, this voice leading kind of thing, because of the way that you move the notes around in the chord, and the way one chord moves from to the next one and then to the next one. It's a whole world in itself.
And that's where the creativity is, right? A lot of people talk about the 12-bar blues as being a very simple progression. Well, it is, but it's what you do with it that makes it special, right?
Exactly.
And so, for example, let's just take our home G chord, play a basic G triad. Okay. Now I'm just going to stay on the 2-draw root note. And just for the heck of it, can you tell us what chord you're going to play next? They'll all be G chords, some iteration of the G chord. But John's going to play tons of different voicings of a G chord to give different, what in the music world we call qualities. Yeah. So I'll stay on that 2-draw and just talk a little bit about each chord as you play it. So.
Okay. That's a G6 right there.
Okay, G, B, D, E.
Yeah, and I have the root actually on the bottom, then the sixth, then the third, then the fifth, but it fit fine.
All right, another one.
If I move this up, here's a G6 on top. Go ahead, play the.
That's really pretty.
Yeah, I have the root on the bottom, then the fifth, then the sixth, then the third. Let's change it up. Play that again. There's that T-Bone Walker ninth again. I have the third on the bottom, but you're playing the root. Yeah, it's a really nice blend. That's a 13th, a G13. I have the 7th, 3rd, 6th, and root.
And we happen to be on the same octave on our root. That's
right,
nice.
Right. And if I go ahead, do it again, I'll kind of change it up a little bit. Now notice that.
It's kind of contemplative sounding.
Yes. Now what am I doing there? Well, it's still a G6, but I have the 6th on the bottom, then the 3rd, then the 5th, then the root. And just by moving the notes around, you get a lot of really interesting sounds. Like here, go ahead again. Now there's just a basic, that's the old school Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. big fat G7 chord, which you heard that a lot in Chicago blues, like Earl Hooker and people like that. It's a big fat sound, but that's just a plain 7th. And root, 5th, 7th, 3rd, 7th, root. Doubling on some of those notes, of course, but still fits everything. All of that fits fine. We could get even, here's, go ahead, play it. It's a little jazzier sound. I'm playing, it's still a G chord. It's a sus. It's a 9 suspended. I have the 5th, the root, the 11, or the suspension, the flat 7, and the 9th. So that's another take on it. And we could go out. We could even go out a little bit on these chords. If we were going to go jazzy, we could put play that note. That note's still kind of aggressive. Yeah, it's really aggressive now. Well, we're kind of getting away, but that was a 13, but I had a flat 9 on top. That's where that tension came from. Not to say that you're going to be playing that in traditional blues, but I'm saying that these things, the chords can be taken all kinds of places. We could play that note again. That's a G7 chord, root, 7, 3rd, but then I have a flatted 5th on top. Still works. So yeah, a lot of different kinds of Gs. And we could go into prettier chords too, like we could play like the kind of chords you see in ballads, like major. Here's a major 6/9. So you're still playing the root, huh? But I got this big fat. This is a G major 6/9 chord. It's got a root, a third. It's got the 6th. It's got the 9th. It's got the 5th. It's got the major 7th on top. Could be voiced differently too. Here's a major 13. 13. Listen. Root, major 7, 3rd, 13. I could even put the 9th on top. Play your root. But see, probably for you now, when you start playing those type of chords, you probably want to find some other notes that